Bugge, also storied spirit, a fancy in a slightly different context, imaginary friends, or urban legend, though these should not be confused with other uses of the term. Appearance. Bugge are spirits that are most often derived from children's tales or other fancies, and as such will have a childlike or whimsical cast to their features, while having the usual range of features or styles that one might associate with spirits. The modern Bugge may have cartoonish features writ real, with eyes bulging out or drawn too wide, odd proportions, animal faces, wild or very colorful hair, or stylized clothing. Even when based on something real, they may appear to be distorted or exaggerated. Bugges may exist or proliferate on a simpler level, as a glyph, symbol, or as a repeated phrase. Relevant practices. Sympathy, to a lesser degree any deal school. Shamanism, with caveats, that being runaway danger. Background. The insistent voice of an innocent can strike the same chords or guide the spirits in the same fashion that a practitioner might, and a story told enough times in enough voices can, if a vessel is available, lead to the formation of a Bugge. Some loose example cases could include a child that regularly and consistently draws their imaginary friend for some time, with others joining in or adding to the mythology, or a graffiti artist might stop mid-word after hearing a car hit someone, running to the body with photos capturing the scene and word in close association, the half-written word becoming a remember her sort of motif. Most Bugge are fleeting, and most will manifest as semi-corporate spirits for a single event only, so briefly lived that it is hard to catalog or track them to any degree of accuracy. Because of this, though the word Bugge comes from Middle English, it can be used as a way of referring to spirit-specific, non-practitioner-derived bugs in the metaphorical system, with some saying they appended the "ge" to the end of bug to mark it as practitioner-specific. For every Bugge that becomes something more, at least 100 last for less than a day, and the vast majority of those 100 last for less than 10 minutes. Further, some Bugge do find traction, but do not exist as more than a repeating glyph with an obscure origin and sometimes no human source for a given appearance, with the super S being a commonly cited example. If such a glyph is raised up, such as by association with a murder, a greater conspiracy theory, or by a celebrity getting it tattooed on them, and if this raising is enough to elevate it beyond its casual use, it may become active. Otherwise, it is the equivalent of spirit world wildlife that encroaches on the real world and is considered inactive. Most of this video will focus on the active Bugge, who lasts beyond 24 hours, as other Bugges aren't of any consequence, nor do they require any attention or offer much use. In the briefest summation, the Bugge arises as a story, imagination, or symbol that finds something material to latch onto. Then if given an excuse, the story feeds the Bugge, and the Bugge feeds the story, sometimes to disastrous effect. Behavior. Bugges have no aim but what is assigned to them. If nothing pertinent is assigned, they will wander, sometimes taking blind attempts at proliferation, even if this would otherwise lead to its downfall. A drawn Bugge may start appearing in other drawings posted on a wall, prompt a fight between school children or siblings, or even drive its creator to stop drawing and reinforcing it. A Bugge told as a scary tale will scare, but generally won't take its behavior beyond that point. A Bugge fashioned as a friend may keep the company of a child. There are low-level spirits at this stage, unimaginative, loose in definition, and easily banished. There's some debate as to whether going out of one's way to banish children's imaginary friends and characters is a sound practice or if it hurts the child, though it should be noted that not all imaginary friends, other or not, are Bugges. The more general danger is that a Bugge will tap into a power source, typically inadvertently, and become something more powerful. This could be a creator or source, often a child, with great potential as a practitioner who doesn't tap into that power, instead channeling it into the Bugge. It could be an accidental ritual or especially widespread urban legend, or the Bugge latches onto some disabled or discarded familiar, domain, implement, or battery of power as its vessel. In these cases, it may develop self-awareness, the desire to preserve itself by manipulating or controlling its creator, or adjusting the terms of its own pattern, or some more complex agenda. On 2 textbook occasions, buggies have proliferated to the point where they had to be quarantined: the paper bag head incident and the triangles incident. In bad cases, a regular citizen can rarely go a full day without running into a glyph or proliferate of the buggy itself, but these cases were so notable because they had become omnipresent, a question of minutes, not hours or days. Something would crop up at every ad break on televisions, on every piece of graffiti, or defacing any store window. Buggies can become boogeymen, in which case they tend to operate through the glyphs, haunts, or if any individual is stupid enough to try and take the legend of a powerful buggy for themselves, such as in the paper bag head incident, where an individual created a mask and outfit, then the buggy can become a possessing spirit, and any of these courses can lead to a much more serious case. When the buggy takes hold in an area, there will be something of a surreal cast to everything it touches, such that it may appear timeless or painted with a certain palette. A combination of noting any buggy glyphs and an area tilting in the direction of the surreal is generally the combination of factors that leads to investigation or searching. In the paper bag head case, the glyph was key phrases that would often appear written out wherever people might scrawl messages, and the eerily common sight of people standing in hard-to-reach locations, such as the top of power poles or behind windows in abandoned buildings, disappearing by the time anyone made their way to them if they didn't outright jump to their deaths and die. Such people would always be seen wearing a paper bag over their heads, with holes cut out for the eyes. The more surreal note was that the sunrises and sunsets seemed to take 5 times as long as they should, casting the neighborhood into almost perpetual sunset colors with exaggerated long shadows. Practitioner observers reported that there wasn't ever a blue sky, given weather conditions, and tended towards rain that left the ground covered in puddles, each puddle with an oily rainbow shimmer. The infirm, wild, and the young are often empowered in these environments, while the stable and serious are worn down, often set to a course where they are focused wholly on getting through the days and ignoring the passing weirdness, devising whatever lies they need to convince themselves that all of this will pass. Strengths. Buggy are hard to permanently root out once they find traction, because they're rooted in ideas, and ideas spread. In their most aggressive incarnations and summonings, they can be struck down and will rebound almost immediately. They might disappear and be unable to re-emerge for a longer time. They might disappear for a short span of time, or they can disappear for such a short time that they appear to be unharmed, or they can multiply, with roughly even odds of each of the 4 results. This plays into a nature that is very chaotic and good at spreading chaos, where they can insert themselves as a motif in collective unconsciousness and creativity and adjust the conversation. The buggy who are established are good at establishing themselves in turn. Weaknesses. Buggy are not spiritual powerhouses, and even the most aggressive cases, like the paper bag head or triangles, are spirits that linger and wait for the right moment to deliver the final blow. They act through influence and operate best on the easily influenced. They are not strategic or clever with their own use or distribution, and many reach points where they are gaining power and frittering it away on people who will soon leave the area and escape the proliferation's reach, or on people where the buggy cannot take hold. For this reason, they tend to work best in enclosed spaces, in towns or neighborhoods, trapped by the grip of winter, see triangles, in schools, and in old folks' homes. This is not to say they work better, but to say that these situations see them being less self-defeating than elsewhere. Binding. Buggy cannot be bound unless they find a host or central vessel. When closing in on this central vessel, it may be prudent or effective to use a greater ideology or symbology for warding and circles, though any circles will generally be for protecting oneself or specific things, because enclosing the buggy itself is difficult. Slogans and company logos may serve, as may Bible verses. However, failing this, the buggy's rules can be used against it, and these are often easily sought and found, but this should be a purely short-term measure for getting out or getting to the power source and cutting it off, because each use of the rules will strengthen the buggy's assault in the long run. Sympathetic mages will have the best tools to dissuade and divert, as the same influences that allow them to manipulate people or those people's relationships through objects are very effective at manipulating, discouraging, or redirecting the buggy. Quarantines may be enacted with that aforementioned symbology and slogans. This may add to the surreal nature of the landscape, where the perimeter of the area seems to be marked with billboards and signage at regular intervals. Summoning. While difficult to bind, buggy are fairly easy to summon. The difficulty in summoning grows as one gets further from the buggy's environment, with a failed summoning fizzling, the buggy acting like the most common of buggies that appears, then flickers out within moments. Effective summoning requires a fairly thorough understanding of the buggy, with a catalog of phrases or glyphs. The buggy is set to a task, then regularly pushed and prodded with new rituals and reinforcements. Each choice may influence how the buggy operates. One might initiate summoning with the core glyph, giving it a strong start where it is most effective at acting and operating, wait until the buggy flags, then write a related phrase somewhere prominent to reinvigorate it and extend its reach and durability. They might decide it's at risk of flickering out due to a lack of progress and use a weaker, secondary glyph to shore it up, and when the buggy is at the cusp of completing the task it was set, its trope may be used, its defining feature that produces pronounced effectiveness. Each has a time before it can be used again. As a loose rule of thumb, having 3 reinforcements is a requirement to get anything done. Having 5 with 0 interruptions or distractions lets one keep a buggy going in fragile perpetuity, and having 7 allows greater perpetuity with some flexibility in what is done when. Obviously, there is an element in play here where gathering the necessary information puts one in the way of the buggy, and utilizing the buggy does create the risk that it spreads through the area one is operating in. A buggy should not be summoned 3 times, or, if it is, a permanent decision should be made to mark the relationship in perpetuity, or permanently sever it. If the latter is undertaken, the buggy should not be mentioned, drawn, or frankly, thought about too hard at any point beyond that. As familiars, buggy have a tendency to leave their fingerprints all over their partner. They aren't balanced or ordered by any stretch of the imagination, and may overtake the host or the host's thoughts. Strong individuality is required to maintain a sense of self in the face of what is a low-level and persistent onslaught, and it is recommended that partners or masters thoroughly investigate themselves and their clothing to ensure that the glyphs aren't taking hold. Something as minor as the logo of a jeans manufacturer on the inside pocket, or a birthmark, can be turned into a glyph. Tattoos help a great deal, but are obviously difficult to fix or discard due to their symbolic permanence should the practitioner lose enough ground that the tattoos become glyphs. As to the benefits, through the link to the buggy, the practitioner may gain more effectiveness and a greater ability to break the rules or test the outer edges of reality in contained areas or areas where they establish influence, and they may benefit from a durability wherein any critical harm is diffused out to the buggy or is transformed into glyphs that spread around the practitioner. For further reading, see Boggarts. Etymologically derived from the same ideas, boggarts stem from very intense feelings and fears, and are strictly focal, particularly those most innocent, such as the demented elderly and small children. May be initially mischievous and then turn sour. Boggles, related, tend to be more abstract and mischievous. Additionally, Bugge, advanced buggy, Bugge tend to build around a narrative, such as impending doom or grim prophecy. It can represent an impending winter or disaster. They may serve a role as punishers. They stand in contrast to Bugge as being very strong, even brutish, everything builds up to a conclusion where they act. Finally, technomancy maintains a glossary of specific terms and roles for technomancy-specific Bugge.